vote and kill for the country, but I can't drink. I can be burdened with college debt. That's what they're telling me I should do. But I know that people are telling me that's a bad idea too. What should I do? And here it is, the government borrowing money and putting upon me and people in my age range to pay for things that they didn't have the foresight to pay for or save for in their earlier life. All of these things they probably feel like, quite often like libertarians do. Yeah. And that is either they check out and ignore it because it's just too annoying, too frustrating, too saddening to deal with, or they get angry and they engage, but or they drink a lot, which is pretty common.
It sounds like me a little bit.
Wait a minute, which one?
The drinking part.
No, come on now, new father. I know that's not true.
No, it's kind of weird. You know, you talk about people who kind of engage it, but veterans, they realize, the government has been manipulating a lot of the taxes and burdens that we have to endure. So, someone who's going to join the military is going to sit there and think, okay, so the government's been manipulating all this stuff, and here I have an opportunity to get free college out of it, versus, serving my country for 2-3 years, and I can pay for all of my college debt and everything that has been kind of inflicted because of the federal government in the first place.
Sure, so like trading one deadly threat from the federal government for a financial threat from the federal
exactly.
government.
And that's part of the problem, is that people don't see it as a deadly threat as much anymore as they used to. When people think about
the military or the financials?
The military,
right,
absolutely.
Deadly to them,
and
other people.
Yeah.
Well, thankfully, some of the news we get about like the opioid crisis, things like that the VA, right here in Wisconsin, there was problems with overprescribed opioids at the VA in Toma. More and more people are aware, and if they take the time to sort of triangulate, to lay out a path, there are visible landmines to people that are 19, 20, 21 years old. There's student debt, military service, excessive taxation, war, all these different things, how they navigate them. I think the best advice that I got on Facebook, and so I'll wrap this up and we'll move on to after the break, was that we need to be more organized. And, of course, as the chair of the Libertarian Party of Wisconsin, I've tried to be more organized. But we need to have, as a party and as a governor campaign, more students on more campuses, more organized, so that they're not looking at some 50-year-old guy who can't figure out whether to wear a goatee or not on their campus talking to them, with whom they agree generally. But we need to have those bright young minds who we know are out there and who we've met organized and helping our campaign and our party in a way that these solutions that we've been talking about tonight really resonate in a way that they feel like they're part of the solution and not just being preached to or tried to pull out of their dorm rooms to vote. So that wraps up that subject. We may touch on it a little bit next segment after this break. We're going to talk about Hurricane Harvey and how the government made it worse, as they make almost everything worse. And later on, talk about a Democrat assembly person from Janesville who is right on about Foxconn. You're listening to the Free People Show, episode 35 at freepeopleshow.com. Back in 2 minutes. Ever been to Burger House 41, Ron?
Not yet, but I want to.
Did you know it's at 1860 West Mason Street in Green Bay?
Say what?
Yes! 1860 West Mason Street in Green Bay. And last fall, not only is it a beautiful facility, and I've been there a few times, but it had this big, beautiful sign in front of it that said Anderson for U.S. Senate. I think that got a lot of votes for whoever that guy is that was running for
Outstanding
Senate.
Individual.
But you, sir, and everyone listening, are invited to indulge in one of life's simplest pleasures, a great burger. We all got to eat, right? Everyone's got to eat.
Absolutely. I'm hungry right now.
You're hungry right now. I don't think we got any food in the house, Ron, so we'll just have to have more beer after the show. This show's degenerating. Good thing these sponsors aren't paying us much for these ads. They're very entertaining, though. They and our friend Adam, who owns Burger House 41, grilling up 15 fresh signature burgers. Maybe for next week I'll get a list of those so we can talk about some of them. Okay. 15 fresh signature burgers and have over 30 craft beers for the perfect pairing. Experience Wisconsin's best flavors, including white cheddar cheese curds, which I think are different from the normal cheese curds you get. Normally those are orange, right? These are white cheddar cheese curds, so I assume that they're better. Not orange, white. A variety of specialty sandwiches, milkshakes, and gourmet frozen custard. Burger House 41 at 1860 West Mason Street is open at 11 a.m. every day. Taste Wisconsin. Taste amazing.
Ooh. Hey, Phil.
Yes?
Do you love chicken?
Man, who doesn't love chicken?
Do you love poultry?
Well, yeah, I like all poultry. I think it's all delicious.
Absolutely.
I think it's all delicious. Is there any poisonous poultry? We need to ask our buddy Tyler. Is there any poultry that you can't eat?
I don't
That's
know.
like bad, like that'll kill you? Or is it like, is there a bird like,
Yeah.
you know, there's certain animals where if you don't process them the right way, if you don't skin them or pluck them the right way, that all of a sudden something terrible happens and people get sick?
Like the blowfish of poultry or something like that.
Or like if you kill a wild rabbit, you know,
Yeah.
there's something on a rabbit you can't touch or you can't let explode or whatever when you're,
Yeah.
I don't know. I wonder if there is.
Well, would you like to experience being one of the free people who produce their own meat and eggs? PurelyPoultry.com has the chickens and supplies you need to raise poultry.
Nice.
Would you like pets who produce eggs you can barter
Yes.
with?
Yes.
A swan on your pond to make
Yes.
your home more attractive?
Yes.
Double yes.
All of the above.
How about some pheasants and quail in your woods to shoot
Yes, yes,
or just enjoy?
yes, and yes.
If so, check out PurelyPoultry.com.
6%? 7%? That's a lot of money. I might as well just do it myself. Well, that might be true, if a lot of that money you're paying a real estate broker is going toward outdated methods, unnecessary fancy offices, and overpaying executives for a lifetime of service. But you don't need to go that route. Silver Compass Realty is a full-service real estate brokerage serving all of South Central Wisconsin, and the commission is negotiable. Silver Compass will explain exactly what they're going to do to help you buy or sell a home, how that will help you reach your goals, and stand right beside you every step of the way. They want to be your broker, your expert, even when you're not in the middle of a transaction. Silver Compass Realty, helping you find your way home. Contact them today at silvercompassrealty.com or call 608-361-8608. Silver Compass Realty, helping you find your way home. Welcome back to the Free People Show, episode 35. Sorry, apparently our reads are going a little bit long, so the engineer is having not a fit, a conniption. When we're listening to the real estate ad, he's chastising us about how we're trying to have fun talking about poultry and hamburgers.
Exactly.
And I think that's okay.
He doesn't.
I was getting mad right now because we're wasting more time.
It's poultry or
It's important. These
useful
people make their
issues.
living doing this. Let's make it as entertaining as possible, and possibly more people will go than if we just read it normal. I don't know.
See, this is why I'm not mic'd up every week, guys.
He gets frustrated. That's okay. Back to the Free People Show, episode 35. We're going to talk now about Hurricane Harvey. And again, our hearts and our prayers and our good thoughts go out to all those in the path of that storm and who are currently flooded and in danger. There are lots of ways online, including and especially Facebook, where if you want to help, there are lots of people who are outside of government agencies and in government agencies doing their best to help the people that are suffering. And it's epic, unprecedented. As you've seen, followed on social media, National Weather Service tweeted that this was unprecedented, never been seen before amount of rainfall and wind in one place, basically because this hurricane made landfall south of Houston as a Category 4, which is a very, very violent hurricane, and then because there's a high-pressure system over the Great Plains and over the Rockies, basically, normally that would move, kind of rotate through the southern United States and out to sea again or dissipate. In this case, it's just sitting there. And some of the rainfall statistics that I saw today, upwards of 50 inches in some places. The pictures are just ridiculous. Water up to street lights, traffic lights, water above the roofs of houses. A warning from Texas authorities saying that if you're going to find shelter in your attic from the flood, like the highest point of your house, that you should take an axe with you so that if you need to, you could hack through your roof to get out. The Cajun Navy headed over there. Some volunteers from Louisiana got in their boats and went over there and are helping. All kinds of people are helping. It's a terrible disaster, and a lot of people have done a really good job. Maybe including, I don't want to say especially because a lot of people are helping, but even the reporters that the mainstream media has sent down there. I saw a very touching video where a CNN reporter basically bailed out of the coverage to help get a very elderly gentleman and his wife into the boat. So a lot of outpouring of goodwill. It's unfortunate that it had to happen this way. Now there's the storm, which is unprecedented, and we're not going to talk about climate change tonight, although it's entirely likely that either in truth or in perception, storms like this might be a result of a change in our climate, whether it's natural or generated by human activity or both, that create more radical storms like this. That may be true. But let's talk about the other conditions that created this. And I had the good fortune to read an article posted in Politico today that pointed out a couple of things about how Washington, D.C., of course, how our federal government helped create this terrible situation. To our knowledge, they're not attempting to affect the weather in that way. But nearly 2 decades before this storm occurred, so about 20 years ago, the National Wildlife Federation released a report about the United States government's dysfunctional flood insurance program. As we know, insurance, like free market insurance, works well insofar as it accurately assesses risk and causes for risk. So if somebody is a really bad driver, they pay, they get in an accident or two, then they pay higher insurance. And if a person is a good driver, then they pay less insurance. In either case, they're covered for the bad things that might happen that might be their fault or somebody else's fault. But in this case, the federal government's flood insurance program made this catastrophe worse by encouraging Americans to build and rebuild in flood-prone areas. Encouraging people. How so? By a misplaced subsidy, of course, and that is by offering this insurance in the first place.
It's always the subsidies.
Yes, Well, we talked about student debt in the last segment, and that's to this extent that the federal government subsidizes this debt, they're creating the problem, right?
Yeah.
Because if people were forced to pay retail for college education, certainly it would be less available, which you can argue that that's not a good thing. The market would probably respond, as it already has to a certain extent. There's a lot more online schooling and less traditional ways of getting education. But because the federal government subsidizes it, then there's more of it, and that creates more debt. I'm going off course here, though. The report by the National Wildlife Federation was called Higher Ground. It took federal data and showed that just 2% of the program's insured properties were receiving 40% of its damage claims. That's not very good underwriting. I wish Patrick was here because he knows all about insurance. He works in the health insurance, but he knows all about how this works. But of course, anyone who buys insurance knows how risk is assessed and premiums and how that steers people to certain behaviors. It's called moral hazard, right? The most egregious example was a home that had flooded 16 times in 18 years, netting its owners more than $800,000, even though it was valued at less than $115,000. I don't like when articles do this, like the extreme example, because it tends to make people question more the rest of the article, but let's look at it. Houston's problem, in specific, was runaway development in flood-prone areas accelerated by heavily subsidized federal flood insurance. Now that Hurricane Harvey has turned David Conrad, who's the one who wrote the report for National Wildlife, turned his warnings into reality, it's worth noting that Houston's problem was in part a Washington problem, a slow-motion disaster that was easy to predict but politically impossible to prevent, because nobody wants to turn off the federal spigot. Nobody wants to say, you're not going to get flood insurance anymore and you're going to have to move, even though the reason to move would be so you don't get flooded, so you don't lose your house and possibly your life. Congress often discusses fixing flood insurance to stop encouraging Americans to build in harm's way, but the National Flood Insurance Program is still almost as dysfunctional as it was 19 years ago. It is now nearly $25 billion in the red, piling debt onto the national credit card. Meanwhile, cities like Houston, as well as New Orleans, which Higher Ground identified as the national leader in repetitive losses 8 years before Hurricane Katrina, continue to sprawl into their vulnerable floodplains, aided by the availability of inexpensive, federally supported insurance. So, ladies and gentlemen, your tax dollars go to encouraging people to live in places that will be flooded often. Let me repeat that. Your tax dollars, and your children's tax dollars eventually, because the government borrows a lot of money, go to subsidizing and therefore encouraging people to live in places that get flooded a lot. When those places get flooded, they pay them lots of money to do that. Now, that's, again, I don't want that to sound as if I'm insensitive to the disaster at hand. But the disaster at hand wouldn't be the disaster at hand if the federal government weren't subsidizing people to live in floodplains and places that get flooded a lot. So part of this is on their doorstep. Part of this is on Congress's no backbone, don't read the bills, don't only work for the party, only work for their donors, lie to us constantly, are always corrupt. This whole system that we suspend our disbelief every couple of years and pull the lever for some of these folks.